All right, everyone. Good morning. Friday morning, final morning briefing of the week. And it's a transfer show today. We're going to spend the next half an hour just discussing the Kieran Tierney stuff. Absolutely no mention of any game that may or may not have taken place yesterday. Sound good, John?
Yeah, I think unfortunately I still got a bit of a hangover from yesterday, so I'm not sure that's quite going to transpire. There's a fair bit to dig into with regards to what went wrong yesterday, I would suggest.
Yeah, it's one of those if you don't laugh, you'll cry kind of feelings we have this morning. Anyway, lovely to have you with us,
Yeah,
everyone. We appreciate the support. I think everyone comes together after these damaging results. But listen, we've had these results previously. We've been in far worse places overall. So I think
oh
there's a
yeah,
general feeling that it was a really bad day, but that things have been far worse. But it was pretty horrendous, John, from start to, I don't know why I'm laughing because it really isn't funny at all.
no,
It was horrendous from start to finish. I mean, up there with the worst, probably the worst derby displays I've ever seen from Celtic.
yes, certainly the worst derby day for Rodgers, like undoubtedly for me.
Yeah.
He's 21 games now, he's lost twice. That was dreadful. I think it was dreadful just across the board. It didn't feel good. It didn't feel like the players gave the best of themselves. I think if you go into a game like that and Celtic lose and whatever, but they've played pretty well and they've created a couple of chances or created a few chances, and you lose where you go, anyone can lose on the day. But I just didn't feel like Celtic were there at all. And to be fair to Alistair Johnston, I think if you read his comments in the press conference that he gave at Ibrox yesterday, he did own up to that. He was pretty honest, I felt, in terms of how he addressed what went wrong on the day. He didn't really give platitudes or anything. He essentially said Celtic went up for it and that they went in the physical battle and that they need to take ownership of that and deal with it and accept that and figure out what went wrong and then move on. And I think that's a fair enough message from a player after the game. Rodgers, pretty honest himself after the game, said, we just weren't getting the passing combinations going, the passing accuracy wasn't there, and again, just referencing that physical battle, which just wasn't there all day from Celtic. And that was probably the most frustrating thing from my perspective, or from plenty of Celtic supporters' perspective. And again, just around Rodgers, I think, well, I don't know how you feel about this, Hamish. I've not really spoken to you actually since the game, but how were you feeling like about the time it took for Rodgers to make changes? Should he have made changes at half time? I mean, and that's all been the big talking point really after the game.
I was surprised he didn't make changes at half time. I actually thought during the first half he could have made changes. I think there was he could have made a statement genuinely in that first half. I know it's probably not the kind of thing he would normally do, and
Yeah,
a bit of chat about he clearly has a bit of an ego, Brendan. We all love him for it. But maybe if he's picked a certain player to start, maybe he wouldn't drag that player off during the first half because it maybe make himself look bad and obviously all the various connotations that would have. But I thought in that first half, never mind halftime, he could genuinely have taken off a couple of players. And I think we kind of roughly know who we're talking about because it was seriously bad stuff
yeah,
from virtually everyone, to be honest. But it was really really bad stuff. Like I've never seen Celtic misplace so many passes. I'd love to know how many times we gave the ball away, uh,
yeah.
turnover the ball. Like it must have been 20 times in that first half alone.
So I believe like Celtic's passing accuracy is usually between 88 and 90%, I think, in most of the games. And I think in this one it was down to 81% by the end of the game. In the first half, I think it was in the mid 70s. So like those misplaced passes were a serious problem, and that was the root of it. And I know we don't really like to single out players after games like this, but we're looking at Rio Tati, we're looking at Liam Scales. Like they just weren't retaining possession in an
McGregor.
effective enough way. Yeah, yeah, Maida. Yeah, they weren't retaining possession in an effective enough way in a match like that. And then the battle, the pursuit of Rangers wasn't there in response.
Yeah.
There was too much distance between the defensive line and midfield. Callum McGregor basically left on his own at times when Rangers are bearing down on the defensive line. So there's no support there either. And it was ugly. It was genuinely ugly. And that's not what you want to see. And I think Rodgers' explanation for why he didn't make the subs was that he wanted to see a reaction with the players after half time, and he likes to give players that little bit of time. But that's too passive for me in a match of of importance. You know, you have to make proactive changes, for me personally. And I know Rodgers knows his way around a derby day. Like, it's churlish for us to celebrate his record in the derby and then say that Rodgers doesn't know how to deal with a derby. But yesterday, he got it wrong. He got it wrong, and I think Celtic got it wrong. The players got it wrong. They weren't up for it. And they need to accept that and then hopefully put it right. And hopefully this is the wee kick that they need, because again, we've spoken a lot about Hamish, but after the loss against Hearts at Tynecastle, they went on an incredible unbeaten run domestically, which only ended yesterday. So maybe this will be the kick that they need to find the hunger within them again. Because let's be honest, Rangers had the hunger and Celtic didn't. And that's what it boils down to for me.
Yeah, they reacted well after Dortmund, didn't they, as well? Yeah. So generally, that's why I feel good about things. I think generally over the past few years, Celtic have reacted well to these damaging results, and they're difficult results at the time. I do feel the team have been coasting a bit in recent weeks, and I know we've been getting away with it in a lot of games, and there's been the odd pretty good performance. I'm not going to rewrite history. I mean, we were good against St Johnstone, I thought, and Hibs game, you know, we're decent enough. So there's been good performances in there, but I think generally the level of performance has deteriorated a bit in recent months, and yesterday was the worst display by a long way. The thing that got me was like every part of our game was poor. It wasn't as if it was just the passing and you would go, but at least we were battling. Because you can have bad days passing. The team weren't battling. The amount of 50-50s we were pulling out of was really dispiriting. But also, how open were we in that first half? Like the positioning, every time Rangers got the ball, it was like one wee switch and it was like 4v3s. It was just, I mean, I see the comments coming in, John, and one of the topics already, loads of people talking about, you know, off day. Was it just an off day, or has this result been coming? Can it be both things?
It is both things. I think it was a particularly bad day yesterday, and I'm not quite sure why. I think it's similar to those kind of end of season junk games that people talk about, where Celtic feel like they've already won the league, and in the context of the season, the derby doesn't matter. But that's not an excuse for me. I'm laying that out as maybe what has got into the players' heads. But when you're mid-season, I know they're 14 points ahead, but you know, it just shows like nothing is automatic in these games. Like. And it almost reinforces how impressive it is when Celtic are so consistent and they're winning every game, they're winning every week, because if you have an off day or you're not at your levels, a team can beat you in this league regardless of who they are, and especially in a derby of such importance when it's a fully partisan Ibrox and there's no Celtic supporters there, and it's going to be one of those ones where you need to have it within yourself. I think I said it before the game, like if you don't have the hunger in these games, it can go badly wrong for you very quickly. And unfortunately, I was saying that in the context of Rangers perhaps not having hunger because of the results that have gone their way, and it feels like their season's unravelling. But it was actually Celtic who didn't have the hunger, perhaps because they're so far ahead in the league. But again, I don't think that's an excuse. You can't have that. You can't be coasting. You can't be coasting. Maybe if we were in April or May and you think, oh, well, the league's won, etc. But the league isn't won, because you need to do this on a week-to-week basis. If you start to let this complacency creep into your game, Alistair Johnston was pretty insistent that it wasn't complacency in the players and that the players did have hunger in the eyes. I think for me, I'm looking at that and I thought the Celtic players were complacent yesterday. And so whether it's a bad day or whether they're building up this complacency over a period of weeks is immaterial. The issue is now that they fix it quickly and they don't let this, they don't let this linger on. They need to get back to where they have been and where we know they can be.
Because the irony was, like, I thought right at the start of the game, Rangers were the ones that kind of looked a bit nervy. Like, we had that set piece and Ibrox was just a little bit edgy. And then I think it's 4 minutes in, Callum McGregor gets caught on the ball by Diamandi, and it's the chance you'll remember. It ends up with the Albanian fella they've got. Can't remember his name. He gets a couple of shots that are blocked. But I actually thought we'd started the game relatively well. And as I say, they were nervous. Then McGregor just gets caught in the ball, and then it was just like we never recovered from that the full game. That was my disappointing thing, was like Celtic have spells like that at Ibrox. We had them under Postecoglou, we had them under Rodgers last season, moments when we were really rattled. That happens to, with all due respect to us, probably happens to bigger and better teams, that are certainly better teams than us in Europe in recent years. Teams like Dortmund have gone to Ibrox and been rattled. But the thing Celtic normally do is they work a way out of it. We have like Callum McGregor dragging the team forward, going on a run like he did in that 2-1 game under Postecoglou. Remember when we went behind to the early goal and he dragged us forward? Or you've got someone like Kyogo popping up with a big goal like he did in the 2-2 New Year's game a few years ago. Yesterday there was just like nothing, and you could tell that pretty early on, because in midfield none of them were taking the game on. The wingers, I mean, Maida and Kuhn were just anonymous in that game, totally anonymous, and I actually, I thought the two of them kind of looked pretty weak at times as well in the tackle, and I thought Rangers were far too strong for them. And I love those two guys. Kyogo wasn't really holding the ball in. To be fair to Kyogo, he produces the one moment of quality in the game from us. That finish is unbelievable, and he's only just offside. But that was the only thing we really did in the whole game.
I agree with that. And I mean, Carter Vickers, I feel like a lot of people are saying he gets past match. He had that incredible tackle that saves
great tackle.
a goal. And then the rest of them, again, it's not really about singling players out. When it's such a collective fail like that, it's just the team went at it, and for whatever reason. And I think, Johnson's right as well. It's like when things start to go badly in a game like that, it can unravel pretty quickly, and that's what we saw in the second half. As soon as they got the second goal, I did feel like they were going to get a third or something like that. I didn't see Celtic fighting their way back into the game. But then what happens from here? Like, you would back Celtic in a moment like this to regroup, find out what went wrong, analyse the game, and move on quickly. That's the evidence that we've had from the Celtic team, from all Brendan Rodgers teams. I don't think there's ever been, a consistent unravelling. So it's one of those. It's an odd one, isn't it? Because people are animated about yesterday because of the state of performance, and that's totally right. But I also don't think it's like a sign of things to come as well. Like, I'm not concerned about the direction of Celtic generally. For me, and maybe some people are, maybe they're looking at the last 4 to 6 weeks and thinking Celtic are heading in the wrong direction. For me, I would back this team to get back, within themselves. I would back the club to perhaps make one or two of the signings that we need to make, and then kind of move forward positively. I don't think this is going to be a defining result in our season, to put it that way. Would you agree with that?
I agree totally. I mean, I wanted to bring up again a kind of common theme. Sorry, I'm not picking out individual comments. As you'll know, everyone, there's just so many of them coming in. I will get to some later on, and all of them are so animated as well. But I've seen a few saying Clement has got, Rodgers' game plan worked out. I don't agree with that personally. I think it's too small a sample size. People kind of comparing the performance yesterday to the cup final. We were a lot better in the cup final than we were yesterday. For me, the performances aren't comparable. Yeah. We still won the cup final. Like, I know it was penalties, but Rangers didn't beat us. We won the cup final, and yesterday we were terrible. And it's been a poor period of the season for this team. Generally, looking at the matches, there's been not too many good performances. Zagreb, Aberdeen, all pretty poor performances. I don't think this is like Celtic Rangers games now, that the way Brendan Rodgers teams play can't work against Rangers. I think the next derby, when it comes at Celtic Park, and if we're in a better place, I still think playing the way we do, the Brendan Rodgers way, moving the ball side to side, can beat this Rangers team. I honestly think yesterday was a combination of a few things. I genuinely think the team turned up expecting to beat Rangers. I think they got a bit spooked in the atmosphere. I don't think they were prepared for that for whatever reason. And I think we got totally caught up in it all. That's the only explanation I can see for passing the ball out of play 20 times.
I mean, so two things I'd say. I've not gone back and looked at the game. I usually do that just to get a sense of, I take the emotion out of it, basically. And I sometimes do that. I've not gone back and looked at yesterday's game yet. I'm not sure I'm going to, but we'll see. I'm not sure I have the stomach for it. But from the first viewing of what, and I felt like this in the cup final again, I think Rangers are starting to work out how to deal with Callum McGregor, and so I don't think it's Clement figuring out Celtic's game plan. I think they're dealing with Callum McGregor better, and Bajrami in particular seems to sit on McGregor, or seems to get into these half space, between the flank and the central areas, especially when Rangers are in attack. It drags McGregor out of position. It creates a massive gap in the midfield that other Rangers players are filling, because Hatate and Bernardo seem to have the licence to stay forward more. So Celtic need to figure that balance out in midfield and play a lot more like they did perhaps against Atalanta, be a little bit more organised in that sense, and not have McGregor be so dragged out of position all the time, because that was a real big problem for me. McGregor was getting dragged out, and there was just a flood of Rangers players, and it looked like every counter-attack or every time they turned over the ball, they looked like they were going to score, and it was pretty dangerous. The other thing is they're good at, and they're becoming better at anticipating Celtic's passes. So passing out of the press, when it's at Greg Taylor or it's at Alistair Johnston, they're becoming better at anticipating the pass back into the midfield. And that's something that Celtic need to figure out too. They maybe need to figure out different, passing combinations going forward, different patterns, to kind of shake things up how they beat the Rangers press. That's the only two things I would really consider as like, what does Celtic need to improve? And just from looking at the cup final and looking at yesterday, that's the two things that stood out to me. And whether Celtic can do that, hopefully they can. And hopefully we can kind of figure out how to get McGregor into that kind of dominating way, because before the cup final, McGregor was dominating this fixture and against the Clement teams. Like, he just really was, and he was the key to getting Celtic past the press and pushing forward. And until we figure out a way to win that midfield battle, then it can get pretty ugly again. So hopefully that is what they're working on.
Yeah, I mean, I get that Rangers are clearly pressing as well, but I mean, like, our players still have to be so much better under the press. Like, Real Hatate can play better than that, and like, if he plays better than that, we beat the press more often, and then we have joy, and we get players like Maida and Kuhn into better areas. So a lot of it, all of it is about us still. That's the thing. I'm not looking at Rangers and thinking like we're kind of relying on Rangers playing a certain way when we play them. I still feel like it's all about us. I genuinely think it was. I just think the team's going through a really poor stage, and I think a lot of factors came into it yesterday. As I say, I think they really get caught up in the atmosphere. We lost our composure completely and struggled to find it at all. But as you said, like, I don't feel like we've got no hope now. Like, I think things can turn really quickly, and I'm so glad we've got a game on Sunday. Can you imagine? Can you imagine going into a winter break off the back of that and having to think about it? We've now got a game on Sunday, a couple of home games coming up to try and get back to what we do best. We're still in a really good position, and hopefully we end up viewing that game yesterday like the Dortmund game, really, really painful at the time, but almost necessary for the team, because it's been a pretty strong season so far with two really big kind of low points, and they dealt with the first one really well. They need to deal with this one, and I think yesterday for me brings out a few changes in the team as well that I'd like to see. I think there's a few players that I'm kind of a wee bit fed up of watching at the moment that kind of just continually, I think, are kind of underperforming. I mean, Real Hatate would be one for me who had to take out the firing line for a wee period.
I would agree with that. And I'm a big Hatate fan, and I know other people have been criticising for a fair bit of time. I've been a bit of a defender of him.
So have I.
Yeah, but you can't defend a performance like that yesterday because it was poor. It's just poor, full stop. Celtic are going to go into their wee cocoon now at Lennoxtown and figure this out. There's no press conferences later today, so I don't think we're going to hear from the team until they take to the field on Sunday, which is probably a good thing. Gives them a chance to just stick together, because you need to stick together in moments like this. You need to collectively take responsibility for what went wrong, and you need to just put it right. Starting, and hopefully we see that reaction on Sunday. I feel like we will. I'm not. It would be a bit concerning if we don't see the reaction on Sunday. Because you want the team to have the pride within themselves to have a result like that, a performance like that, and immediately show the Celtic supporters, immediately show everyone, their opponents as well, that that's not going to derail anything. It's not going to derail the forward momentum. Again, there's people in the chat pointing out that Celtic are in a very, very strong position still, and that is important to consider. 11 points clear is, even at this stage, is remarkable, and Celtic have everything in their hands They've got so much opportunity in this year specifically. We talked about it on the Hogmanay video, but 2025 can be a massive year for Celtic. The opportunity is there in their hands to take it. And that's what you're reinforcing as well in the terms of, like, you're saying everything that can change positively is within Celtic's control. There's nothing outside of Celtic's control. And that is the position you want to be in. As a football team, as a sports team, you want to have that control. And hopefully that is something that we can utilise going forward.
The team have built up enough goodwill for me this season with the performances for us to allow them to just go away and put this right. It was an awful day, and hopefully at the end of the season we just view it as an awful day. And personally, I think that's how it will be viewed. Just a really bad day where, for whatever reason, the performance was absolutely awful, and we kind of got what we deserved. But as you say, opportunity to put it right going forward, and we're in such a good place in the league. I mean, Champions League games coming up as well, so that's kind of what I'm really looking at now.
Yeah, and so how, just in terms of, let's have a wee chat about the team. So what is the exact team we want to see, on Sundays? Schmeichel, Johnston, Carter Vickers, Trusty, Valle? You want to tailor out the team as well? Potentially. I'm not convinced Valle is like the absolute answer. I don't think he's like a much better player than Greg Taylor. That's not my kind of priority position for me. I think the midfield for me is. So what's your midfield? I suppose it's McGregor, Engels, and Bernardo. Is that what we're looking at?
McCowan would potentially be in there for me in one of those positions. I know he was at fault, I think, for the third goal yesterday. I take that point. I'd actually forgotten about that earlier when I was praising him, but I did think he looked decent when he came on. Apart from that, thought he was kind of lively. I know the game was maybe kind of over as a contest at that stage, but I just think he's playing much better than someone like Real Hatate at the moment. Takes care of the ball far better, looks far more likely. So I'd be getting him in the team.
Clamming in for Ida, or are the front three just the same, and it's midfield you want them changed? It's difficult. I don't think we don't really have the option on the left wing to change it from Maeda. So, this is what we spoke about as well. Yeah, we need this in January. We need the alternative options. As good as Maeda's been this season, and he has been very impressive, I think naturally players will have a poor game or two or need to be rotated out of the team. And I don't think we've got a viable option to kind of rotate Maeda at the moment.
Yeah, we don't.
Kuhn as well.
Yeah, I mean, for Kuhn, for me, it was just an off day for Kuhn. I mean, we're raving about Kuhn the game prior against St Johnstone, and so we can't just suddenly say, "Oh, Nicholas Kuhn's, terrible."
No,
no. The striker thing's concerning me because, and it's winding me up because the two, Kyogo and Ida, both seem to be struggling at the moment to hold the ball in. They're getting the ball passed to them, and Ida had one late on in the game yesterday where he tried to back heel it for some reason. It went right through at the goalkeeper. Kyogo had one early in the game where it went to him, he tried to flick it around the corner, and it was just nowhere near a Celtic player. Those guys need to be better for me. The two strikers need to be better. They're neither of them are performing for me at the moment. It's not like one of them's maybe not playing quite to the level, but you go, right, but we'll play him. Both of them are just flat into deceive. And I love them both. I rate Ida. I don't buy into the stuff people are saying that Ida's a waste of money. I think Ida's going to prove to be a great player for Celtic. Obviously, Kyogo's record speaks for itself. But the two of them for me at the moment are not, neither of them are playing well, and I really think they need to up their game.
And I think that's probably a sign of where things are going wrong, because they look isolated, so they're not able to impact the game or find the combinations that they need to impress or stand out. So I fully agree with that. Again, it's just one of those ones. We'll have this little, we'll all process what happened yesterday, and we'll just forget about it. I want to forget about this game as quickly as possible. Hopefully, we're not talking about it on the channel or the website for too long. We just want to move on and move on to better things. But it's on the team to show us that, isn't it, Hamish? It's on the team to help us move on with a strong performance at the weekend. If they don't have a strong performance, then this is just going to all linger on, because that is the reality of football in Glasgow.
But the reality of football in Glasgow is that one team's up and the other one's down, but how quickly things can change. And we saw that, the reaction after the Dundee United game wasn't anything like this, but it was pretty negative after that game.
And then suddenly
the next game we won and Rangers lost at St Mirren, and it flipped again. And the reality is that if we go out and beat St Mirren at the weekend and Rangers drop points at Hibs, which is not a ridiculous kind of notion, then things will switch again. So things can turn really quickly. And as I repeat, I'm so glad we're not going into a break. I'm so glad that we've got games to put this right really quickly. I think we've got 8 more games in January.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
It was crazy. I think the start of this run, I think I said it, but it was like 13 games in 41 days. So it's a game every 3.4 days or something crazy. So, yeah, opportunities there. What about Kieran Tierney this morning? I know we kind of laughed at the start, but kind of chat that he's keen on coming back. Fabrizio Romano saying that Celtic are in negotiations with Arsenal. What do you make of that?
Well, it's immediately for me a bit of a boost after a pretty kind of poor 24 hours, and we don't need to go into all the Tierney stuff again. I've kind of think we've both made our thoughts clear, and I think they're pretty similar, to be honest, that we would both go for Tierney, but with kind of awareness for his potential limitations fitness wise, and having a suitable second option is pretty important. But yeah, when you see the left back position yesterday, Taylor kind of pretty poor, and Vi not much better when he came on. Having someone like Kieran Tierney, if he could stay fit, would be a game changer to that team. So it'd be a huge boost as well, seeing him return home.
I think the rumblings and rumours have been for a while that Tierney really wants the return to Celtic, and that seems to be out there pretty openly public now. Someone's feeding that information to Fabrizio Romano, so that information is out there in a sense. So we'll see how that figures out. I think for me the gut feeling is that he's going to come back. So hopefully it moves forward without any. I hate a transfer saga, Hamish, as you know. So hopefully it just all gets sorted out one way or another.
Yes, right. A few comments that literally are absolutely firing in today. Thomas kind of hinted what we said. It's about how we react to win on Sunday is needed. Hazel doesn't want to criticise individual players because really only Carter Vickers gets pass marks yesterday. That includes Brendan Rodgers. Surprised he didn't get a grip of that nonsense yesterday. Scales was atrocious yesterday. No one was shown for him at all. Midfield was completely missing. Passing about at the back and going nowhere is killing us. Yeah, we move forward to St Mirren, and the game's on Sunday afternoon. So as we see, a chance for us to put it right, and hopefully we see that.
Yeah, and again, I think we will. The support will be eager for it. Rodgers will be emphasising that the home support need to see that. And then we've got another home game midweek. United are playing well just now, though, and up into third, and that's not a gimme either. So I don't think there is a gimme at this point. You know, you've got to show the character, you've got to show the quality, and you've got to create chances. That was another thing yesterday. Just the lack of chance creation was quite shocking.
It's been like shocking. That a lot of away games, though. Aberdeen, Zagreb, Dundee United.
Mm-hmm. So we need to see
it needs to be the kind of the moment yesterday, the wake-up call for me, the game yesterday, just to say, right, come on, we're a good team. We started the season well. We need to get back to being a good team. Maybe they've just started believing their own hype a little bit. I don't know. That would be kind of natural because we've done nothing but praise them all year. But they need to just use yesterday as a big moment and kick on now. And I mean, this month we can qualify for the knockouts of the Champions League for the first time in 13 years. So, like, what an opportunity. We can, move on in the Scottish Cup. We can move a lot closer to the league title if we win all of our league games. The next derby's at Celtic Park. Like, it's all there for the team to go and do this now.
And this is why Rodgers gets paid the big money. This is why he is considered an elite manager. It's on him. The responsibility falls on him to regroup Celtic and get them up for these challenges ahead, because that's what we all want to see. We've had so much optimism this season. Yesterday was a blow, but let's get back to the optimism that everyone's had.
Just a final thing I wanted to mention was the kind of unsavoury element yesterday. Celtic spokesperson saying that we understand Police Scotland are currently investigating 2 separate incidents. The repeated targeting of our players and staff with missiles is quite appalling and completely unacceptable. That's, as I say, from the Celtic spokesperson. Clearly, Arnie Engels was the target of one of those. Brendan Rodgers said if the coin that was thrown had been an inch lower, it would have been right in Arnie Engels' eye. I believe Brendan Rodgers had something thrown at him as well. So I just wanted to mention that as well, because that's
of course,
really not good enough, and it's been a bit of a theme at Ibrox in recent years.
Yeah, it's not good enough at all, and It's horrible to see them getting thrown, but it's worse when it hits the player. And again, if it goes in his eye, it's a different story. It's a serious matter. Thankfully, he's okay. Alistair Johnson's quick to remind everyone that it's also a game of football at the end of the day, but we don't need to be seeing that. It's not fair on the players because they're doing a job. But I mean, it goes without saying it's unacceptable, isn't it? So hopefully, I don't know. You just don't want to see that. And again, there's been incidents where there's been stuff thrown into away supports and stuff in the derby over the years, and that's why they're putting up these nettings for the kind of return to allocation in the future. And it's sad. It's sad. We don't need to go into it. It's pretty unequivocal, unacceptable stuff.
Next derby, for anyone wondering, like me, unless we meet in the Scottish Cup, the next league derby 15th of March. So a wee wait, but who knows what situation we'll be in.
Yeah, Ken's Pat asking here, does normal ticket allocation return for Glasgow derbies now, or is it reduced capacities? I believe it's going to return back to the normal ticket allocation unless something else comes up. I think both clubs have now done the work required.
Not the old allocation though.
No, not the old allocation. Yeah. It's a Euro style allocation, so it's not the full...
Rangers will get 3,000 at Celtic Park.
Yeah. So Celtic will have, when European teams go to Ibrox and they have a bit of the Broomloan, it's like that, I think. So it's not the full behind the goal, but it's better basically, and it's not the wee tiny allocation in the corner either. It's not 800. So yeah, I believe that is happening from the next one. Although every time it seems to be happening, something else pops up. But hopefully, it's all resolved now.
Okay, that will do us for today. We can get on with our lives. There'll be plenty more coming up on the Celtic Way. Maybe more ahead of St Mirren as well.
Yeah, we've got plenty coming up. We've got stuff. We've got the stuff. So Tony was at Ibrox yesterday. So there's stuff that gets embargoed to go out, interviews with the player and the manager. And they did that instead of doing the press conference today. So there's no Celtic press conference today. So we do have interviews and comments coming out from the Celtic camp in advance of St Mirren. And we've got plenty. We've got analysis. We've got loads of stuff coming out over the next few days, and we're kind of also turning towards all the transfer stuff as well. So we're trying to trace down new links and information and get the news out there. That's what we're trying to do anyway. So hopefully that pays off. But keep it on the Celtic Way. We'll be back. It'll be myself and Ryan on Sunday doing the live shows, and obviously Hamish, you'll be back next week, and we'll be moving forward hopefully with more positive things to talk about.
Yes, okay. Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate you all tuning in. If you're not yet subscribed to the YouTube channel, please consider doing that. It's completely free. And as you can see, it means you can get notified whenever we go live so that you don't miss any of the chat at all. We will head off for now. And as I say, we'll be back very soon.